Last year, our country celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, one of the most important pieces of legislation that was passed in the 20th century. It opened the door to millions of Americans to exercise their constitutional right to vote. But this year will mark the first presidential election in a half century without the full protections guaranteed by that landmark law. One of the worst decisions this corporate-dominated Supreme Court made was Shelby County versus Holder, which struck down a key part of the law, taking the teeth out of provisions that protect voters from oppression laws. Since that misguided decision, states across the country have passed new voting restrictions that would disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of Americans. 17 states at least have passed new voting restrictions since the Shelby County decision. We know who is hurt the most by these laws: African Americans, Latinos, young people, seniors. In North Carolina, before enacting one of these laws, the state legislature specifically asked for data on voting patterns by race. And once they had this data, they decided to eliminate or limit the voting methods used by African American voters. Thankfully, the Fourth Circuit Court struck down this blatant attempt to disenfranchise one group of voters, writing, "The new provisions target African Americans with almost surgical precision." In Ohio, my state, the courts have shamefully allowed laws like these to stay on the books. Last week, we were dealt multiple blows. First, the Supreme Court refused to hear an appeal on the Sixth Circuit's decision ending Golden Week, created by a Republican legislature a decade ago, when voters can register and vote on the same day during the one-week early voting period. In May, Judge Watson, a George W. Bush appointee in the Southern District in Columbus, found that the laws limiting early voting and registration would disproportionately impact African Americans. Judge Watson did the right thing. But the ultra-conservative Sixth Circuit ruled to overturn that ruling, ending Golden Week. Last week, the Supreme Court nodded 4-4 because the Republican majority leader won't let the Senate do its job and have hearings and confirmation on Judge Garland. The Supreme Court declined to intervene. Then the Sixth Circuit overturned a lower court ruling that had thrown out new Ohio laws imposing stricter requirements on absentee and provisional voters. Judge Damon Keith's dissent in this case captured what these restrictions are really all about. He notes that during the committee debate over the law, one legislator asked, "Should we really be making it easier for those people who take the bus after church on Sunday to vote? For those people who take the bus after church on Sunday to vote?" Making it crystal clear exactly what they were targeting and whom they were targeting. Judge Keith continues, "Democracies die behind closed doors. Voting is the ultimate expression of self-government. Instead of making it easier for all persons, unrestrained and unvetted, to exercise this fundamental right to vote, legislators are making it harder. States are audaciously nullifying a right for which our ancestors relentlessly fought and in some instances even tragically died." I would point out, Mr. President, that even this body in the House, only about a decade ago, overwhelmingly bipartisanly renewed the Voting Rights Act that the court struck down. Now one political party is digging in opposition to that. It's no secret what these laws are about. State legislators have made this perfectly clear. In 2008, African Americans voted early in person at a rate more than 20 times greater than white voters. We all remember the scenes from Cuyahoga County, Cleveland in 2004, when some voters waited as long as 7 hours to vote. For hourly workers, for college students who work a third shift, parents who have to drop their children off at school, and many others, early voting ensures that their voices will be heard. 2012, 10% of the electorate, 600,000 people voted early in my state. That's 600,000 voices that might not have been heard were it not for early voting. But some judges who dress in suits and lead very privileged lives with generous benefits from taxpayers have decided these voices aren't worth hearing. As Judge Keith said, democracies die behind closed doors. This body refuses to hold a hearing on the nominee who would have allowed the Supreme Court to hear the appeal in the Golden Week issue. and issue a real decision. And this body refuses to bring to the floor the Bipartisan Voting Rights Advancement Act. In 1981, when signing an extension to the Voting Rights Act, President Reagan called the right to vote the crown jewel of American liberties. Ronald Reagan would have seen his political party today go in an exactly opposite direction, and that's sad.